So it is absolutely vital in this moment of climate emergency that feminist movements, which mobilizes the strength of women, actually connects deeply to these ecological movements.
You criticize narrow understandings of capitalism, which reduce capitalism to the exploitation of wage labor alone. And why is it crucial to recognize capitalism as an economic system which fundamentally relies on unpaid labor in the sphere of social reproduction, such as childcare, household, cooking, and many other tasks?
Well, think about it this way. Before you go to work, what is the backstory of going to work? The backstory of going to work is someone has to feed you, and if you live alone, you have to feed yourself. But even when I say feed myself or feed me, that very verb, feeding, breaks down into multiple tasks. It means buying the food, cooking the food, and then being fed, and so on. Also, you can't really go to work on a regular basis unless you have a bed to sleep in, so you need rest. So all of these tasks that we're talking about are the precondition of wage labor, right? These tasks have to be done before wage labor can actually even start. So this is why the precondition for the process of wage making to start has to be life making. So unless there are these institutions of life making, one of which is the family, then you cannot have a worker ready for work. So this is the backstory, the precondition of wage work that social reproduction actually studies. And without understanding that, you do not understand two very fundamental things about the capitalist system. One is you do not understand how gender is central to the process of exploitation, right? So the extraction of surplus value is the project of capitalism, is the goal of capitalism. But what we don't emphasize, unless we come from, sort of a Marxist feminist tradition, is how central gender is for that exploitation to carry on uninterrupted. So that's the one thing that we understand from understanding the backstory of wage labor. The second vital thing that we understand is capitalism's reluctant reliance on processes of social reproduction. What do I mean by reluctant reliance? Capitalism relies on it because it's the precondition, right? So without life-making activities, you cannot have the wage laborer. If you don't have the wage laborer, you cannot have profit. So life-making is important and capitalism relies on it. But it does not want to give any money for it, and it does not want to give any support to it, okay? So if it could have it all free, then that would be great. That would be great because any money capitalism puts towards social reproduction activities has to come from its profits, right? So it doesn't want to give any money to social reproduction activities. But you have to understand that it does have to because of that reliance. So it's a reluctant reliance. But what that tells us also is quite vital. What that tells us is the possibilities of revolt that lies not only on the factory floor where exploitation takes place, but the possibility of revolt that lies outside of the factory floor at these centers of social reproduction.
If we turn to the question of ecology, in which way are women, particularly women from the global south, especially affected by climate change? And where do you see a chance for a connected feminist and ecologist struggle?
So the fact of the matter is that 80% of climate refugees are women. Okay, so this is just a fact that we have to deal with. And this is why, and it's not coincidental, that women are at the forefront often of protecting ecological resources and fighting for ecological resources. We can name the women in the Garhwal Hills in India who are fighting against commercial occupation of their forested lands. We can name the indigenous Native American women in America who are the water protectors, who are fighting against the dam building, which is not just Trump, it goes back to the Obama era. Obama sent soldiers to fire on cold December day at the water protectors, okay? So, so this is not a coincidence that women are often taking the lead in the climate struggles of our times, okay? Especially indigenous women. And this is for two reasons. One, capitalism always wants to scavenge and steal what it perceives as free gifts, okay? So nature for capitalism is a free gift. It's there for my taking. You know, and this is why colonialism is such an integral part of capitalism, right? So it is there for the taking. It's virgin land. Oh, inconveniently, there's some people living on this land, so all we need to do is either get rid of them, kill them, or enslave them because we need that land. So, similarly, capitalism, just like it considers women's labor as free labor for capital, which is what it makes it the precondition of wage labor, right? It's free labor, and we don't have to pay for it. Similarly, it considers nature as a free gift, and this is why it is the system. It is one of the class societies. I mean, we've had class societies before, but capitalism is the paramount class society that actually tries to use nature to its absolute, sort of devastating capacity, right? So, and in many of these places, it is indigenous communities who have first worked with these natural resources in order to sustain their communities. And in these communities, it's often women who have done this work, right? So it is absolutely vital in this moment of climate emergency that feminist movements, which mobilizes the strength of women, actually connects deeply to these ecological movements. I don't even need to tell this audience about the level of emergency that we have right now. In fact, I'm very sympathetic to the view that we should treat the climate crisis as if we are at war right now. So the kind of measures that European and North American governments conducted during wartime, I think it is high time that those kind of measures came into place, that this is an emergency and we need to act that way, okay? We've seen, in the case of the climate movement, we have seen school strikes, something that has never happened in the era of capitalism ever again, ever before. There has never been school strikes by 14, 13-year-olds across nations in order to protect the planet, okay?
Let's turn to our goal of joining existing struggles. Which difficulties and dangers might impede the joining of forces between particular groups to form a common anti-capitalist insurgency against the 1%?
Okay, the first challenge, I think, is for traditional labor unions to understand both the climate crisis and understand what is the nature of the recomposition of class struggle in our times, okay? So traditional labor unions have played a fantastic role in the labor movement of the past, okay? They have also played somewhat not so fantastic roles in the sense that in America, I'm sure Switzerland has its own history, but in America, for instance, labor unions have been segregationist, have been racist, have been phenomenally sexist towards women workers and so on. So labor unions have a contradictory history and a past, but they have been militant labor unions and they have played a great role. But one of the things the labor bureaucracy have always failed to understand is what the lives of its rank and file are like, okay? And that is something that is essential from a social reproduction point of view. Who is the working class? The working class is not the dungaree-clad white mining worker anymore. The working class is a hijabi, canteen worker in a large city in the US or in London, okay? The working class are, landless Dalit workers in India, okay? Or, migrant workers in China working in these sweatshop conditions, okay? And even in the US, the working class is increasingly Latina and Black, okay? So the union bureaucracy often does not understand the strength, the role that race and gender are currently playing in recomposing and rekindling class consciousness. Okay, so what does the feminist strike do? It does not, as some labor bureaucrats have argued against me, the feminist strike does not drive a wedge in the labor movement. It actually recomposes the class and escalates class consciousness. That's what the feminist strike does. In Latin America, this is very clear. It is the feminist movement that has rekindled militancy in the labor movement, not the other way around. The traditional labor bureaucrats are a hindrance at this point in the recomposition of class struggle. So that's one. And the second thing that they have is that anything outside the union is detrimental to the union, which is a completely wrong view. And we need to go back to understanding the role of mass strike, as Rosa Luxemburg outlined, that strikes may come from the community, it may come from the workplace, but it's not important where it begins. What is important is how we sustain it. The second challenge is the rise of social democracy. Okay, and this is an interesting challenge because we want there to be strong social democratic currents in which revolutionaries can swim. Yeah, because in a period, say for instance, with Reagan and Thatcher dominating, that is not a good time for revolutionaries to flourish. Okay, but in a place where Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn are ascendant, that is a great time for revolutionaries to flourish. But social democracy comes with its own problems. That the process by which we popularize Sanders and the process through which we are working towards electing Sanders is far more important than actually electing Sanders. Because the doors you knock in, you're not just going to have a conversation as a revolutionary socialist, hey, elect Bernie. You're going to have a conversation about the planet is burning. What can we do? Okay, you're going to have a conversation, your schools are closing down, the police are shooting Black people. So those are the conversations and connections you're going to make when you knock on the door as a revolutionary socialist. That is far more important than that one ballot vote that you cast, right? The third challenge is simply that we're running out of time. Okay, capitalism is burning this planet. It is burning the planet for our grandchildren and future generations, and we are running out of time. The ice caps are melting, and we just don't have time. That's the most important and urgent challenge that we have now, and we definitely need urgently to build a mass movement in order to confront climate change.